Ferguson is really honing in on this abortion thing with Dave Reichert, and he's been incredibly dishonest about it. Now, I'm not saying it's not an important issue to talk about. Yeah, I think Dave Reichert ought to answer for some votes that he took in Congress, and I think it's perfectly reasonable for him to be asked about his stance on abortion. Now, he has made clear time and time again, including on this show last week, that, yeah, he's a Christian man, so he is pro-life, but that doesn't mean that he has to be a Christian governor in the sense that he's going to push his personal religious beliefs on everyone else. And as he has stated, abortion was approved by voters, our current abortion law, in the 1970s in Washington. And he has no intent on overturning the will of voters, nor could he if he even wanted to. And that's the key. Dave Reichert cannot mess with our abortion rights as they are in Washington. He can't. He is not able to do it on an island. So any suggestion from the Bob Ferguson campaign that he can is just not true. Now, if people want to vote against Dave Reichert because they don't like that as a Christian he's pro-life and they just don't like his personal position and it's out of step with their personal position, then that's a different thing. But if they're voting against Dave Reichert because they've been led to believe that he could actually erode abortion rights in Washington, that's deceit. And they're voting based on a lie. And that's the difference that I want to draw is like, if you want to vote for Bob Ferguson based on facts about Dave Reichert and based on facts about Bob Ferguson and based on their actual records, like by all means, I would never knock you for wanting to do that. You do you. But to see people being tricked into voting for someone or tricked into voting against someone bothers me. Call me crazy, but that bothers me. I want you to cast your votes based on honest information. So anyway, Bob Ferguson's latest attack on Dave Reichert, he tweeted this out. Anti-choice Congressman Dave Reichert owes Washingtonians an explanation for why he voted with Donald Trump to gut Washington's voter-approved abortion protections and impose a nationwide abortion ban. Why would anyone believe what he's saying now? So there's obviously some fundamental issues with just that statement, and I'll address them momentarily, but he included a screenshot of a 2017 article from the Washington Post. The headline is this: with Trump's backing, House approves ban on abortion after 20 weeks of pregnancy. So that's what Bob Ferguson is saying. Hey, Dave Reichert sided with Republicans in voting in the House when he was in Congress to ban abortion after 20 weeks of pregnancy. And he wants to that means he would want to gut Washington's voter-approved abortion protections. Now, a little bit, if you're not familiar with that vote that happened in 2017, so it was mostly along party lines. Dave Reichert did vote for this. It would have banned abortions after 20 weeks of pregnancy, with exceptions where the life of the mother is at risk or rape and incest, so the big three exceptions. So you might look at that and say, oh my gosh, Dave Reichert wants to ban abortions after 20 weeks, and he voted to do that in Congress, except in cases where the life of the mother is at risk or rape and incest. And Bob Ferguson is suggesting that's extreme? That's almost exactly what Washington State's law on abortion is. That's almost exactly what our restrictions on abortion in Washington State already are. So in Washington State, there isn't a set number of weeks, but if you look at RCW, it states that Washington as a state, they may not deny or interfere with a pregnant individual's right to choose to have an abortion prior to viability of the fetus or to protect the pregnant individual's life or health. So prior to viability of the fetus is the standard in Washington State. Now, generally accepted medical wisdom is that a fetus becomes viable around 21 to 24 weeks. So at any point after that, and for all intents and purposes, Washington bans abortions after about 24 weeks, except in cases where the life of the mother is at risk. So the vote that Republicans took in Congress would have been to set essentially the same standard that Washington State has for the rest of the nation. So why does Bob Ferguson now think that that's extreme? What they were saying, and I don't agree with it. I like the state-by-state approach that has come after the repeal of Roe, because then you can really decide if abortion is your issue, it's a make or break. You can move to a state that more aligns with you ideologically. So I like it being in the hands of the states. I don't want Congress to pass any sort of nationwide restrictions. But Bob Ferguson can't call it extreme to ban abortions after the point of fetal viability, when Washington state's law, which he, I believe, fully supports, would bans abortions after the point of fetal viability. So if he's saying what Dave Reichert did in Congress was extreme, then he's calling his own position on abortion extreme. He's calling Washington state's abortion law extreme, right? So that just shows you how it makes absolutely no sense in the world. Now, when it comes to my pro-choice position, I actually would like to see Washington state's clarified just a little bit more, because when you're talking about up to the point of fetal viability, there is, I would say, maybe a 6 to 7 week window where doctors might disagree on what fetal viability actually means and what the percentage of the survival rate actually is in those areas and whether you would consider that viable. And so I would like to see it not left open to the interpretation of individual doctors. I think there ought to be a little more clarity to the law, but I would never push to see it changed. But again, what they did in 2017 is no more extreme or allowing than Washington state's law. So I'm not quite sure how Bob Ferguson could go after Dave Reichert for the very position on abortion that he holds. Odd, isn't it?